My shift ended at 11:47 p.m. I remember looking at the clock before walking out of the building. The city outside looked unusually quiet. At first, I didn't think much about it. Some nights were simply slower than others. But as I stepped onto the street, something felt wrong. The traffic was almost gone. Most of the stores had already closed. Even the usual noise of the city seemed distant. The silence felt unnatural. I reached my car and pulled out my phone. That's when it happened. An emergency alert appeared on the screen. The message was short. Stay indoors immediately. No explanation, no warning, no details. Just those 3 words. I read the message twice. Then it disappeared. I stood there for a few seconds trying to understand what it meant. A storm warning? A chemical leak? Some kind of accident? Nothing made sense. I got into my car and started driving home. The roads were nearly empty. Streetlights reflected off abandoned vehicles parked along the curb. Several intersections were completely deserted. It felt as if everyone had vanished. The farther I drove, the stranger things became. A city bus sat in the middle of the road with its doors open. Nobody was inside. A convenience store had its lights on, but no employees were visible. Even the gas station near my apartment looked abandoned. Then I noticed police lights. A patrol car was blocking part of the road. Its driver's door stood open, but there was no officer nearby. I slowed down. Something about the scene bothered me. It looked like whoever had been there left in a hurry. Then I heard a scream. It came from somewhere behind the buildings. Sharp. Terrified. And then silence. Complete silence. I immediately locked my car doors. Every instinct told me to leave. But curiosity made me stop. That was my first mistake. A few minutes later, I saw someone emerge from the darkness. A police officer. He stumbled across the street as if he could barely walk. His uniform was soaked with blood. I rolled down my window and called out to him. No response. The officer continued moving forward, slowly, dragging one foot behind him. I stepped out of the car. For a moment, I thought he needed help. Then he lifted his head. I froze. His eyes looked empty, not injured, not scared. Empty, as if something inside him was gone. The officer suddenly rushed toward me. I barely reacted in time. I jumped backward and ran. My heart felt like it was about to explode. The screams started again. This time there were more of them, from different directions. Somewhere nearby, glass shattered. A car alarm began echoing through the streets. The city was changing, and whatever was causing it was spreading fast. I got back into my car and drove. I didn't know where I was going. I just wanted to get away. But every street looked worse than the last. Abandoned vehicles blocked major roads. Store windows were broken. People were running. Others stood completely still. Some looked injured. Some looked terrified. Nobody seemed to understand what was happening. I tried calling my family. No answer. I called again. Nothing. I called emergency services. The call never connected. That's when I realized this wasn't a normal emergency. The systems were already failing. The city was losing control. Minutes later, I noticed smoke rising in the distance. Then another column of smoke appeared. Then another. Something terrible was happening. I could feel it. The emergency alert had arrived too late. By the time people received the warning, whatever had started this was already everywhere. I abandoned my car and continued on foot. The streets felt different now. Every shadow looked dangerous. Every doorway felt like a possible trap. I kept hearing footsteps, sometimes close, sometimes far away. Whenever I turned around, nobody was there. The silence between the sounds was somehow worse. At one point, I passed an apartment building. The front door was wide open. Inside, furniture had been overturned. Food sat untouched on a dining table. A television was still running, but the building was empty. Completely empty. It looked as if everyone had disappeared within seconds. That image stayed with me, because it wasn't the blood that frightened me. It wasn't the screams. It was how quickly normal life had vanished. A few hours earlier, people were living their ordinary lives, watching television, eating dinner, talking with friends. Then, suddenly, everything changed. I continued moving through the city. The darkness seemed endless. Occasionally, I heard distant gunfire. Sometimes I saw flashing emergency lights, but I never found safety, only more questions. Eventually, I climbed onto a rooftop overlooking part of the city. The view was unforgettable. Smoke covered the skyline. Sirens echoed from every direction. Fires burned in several neighborhoods. The city I had lived in my entire life no longer looked familiar. It looked like a place already lost. I stood there listening, waiting, hoping another emergency alert would appear, hoping someone would explain what was happening. No message came. No rescue arrived. No answers appeared. Only silence. That's when I finally understood. The emergency alert wasn't meant to save us. It was a final warning. A warning sent after it was already too late. The city had fallen long before anyone realized it. And for the first time that night, I understood something terrifying. This wasn't the end of one bad night. This was the beginning of something much worse. And none of us were prepared for what was coming next.